Thank you very much, Dr. Harriet. So as Dr. Harriet mentioned, my presentation is going to be on Vedic sounds and their application to Maharishi Ayurveda. But I'm not going to be speaking about how to apply them. I'm going to be speaking more in terms of what the Vedic sounds are and why it is that they're effective in taking care of many taking care of different health difficulties. Vedic sounds, probably everybody here knows what they are. Okay, that is better. Yes, thank you. Vedic sounds are simply the sounds of the Veda and the Vedic literature. And what that is simply is if you take, let's say, a branch of Vedic literature, a text of Vedic literature, you open up Rig Veda, and the first thing you see is Agni Mile Purohitam Yagyasya Devam Ritvajam, and so forth. That's a Vedic sound. In yoga philosophy, a sound might be, in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Atha Yoganushasanam, Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha, Tadadrashtu Swarupe Avasthanam. Those are Vedic sounds. So how is it that these kinds of sounds can help take care of health problems? There's quite a lot of empirical research, and it's growing, that indicates the effectiveness of different applications of Vedic sounds on health. There are studies that show that yagyas can take care of depression, anxiety, hypertension, digestion, sleep. Gandharva Veda music, which comes from Gandharva Veda, one of the Upavedas, that has been found to alleviate depression in elderly with dementia. And there are quite a number of other studies that have come up recently, but they never mention why it works. Why does performing a yajna work? Why does reciting Vedic literature work? Why does reading the Vedic literature with proper pronunciation help balance the physiology? And Maharishi addresses this in his Vedic Science quite extensively. And the essay or the paper that I wrote for the conference has more detail. I'll have to go through rather quickly because there's quite a lot, but hopefully this will give you the idea. And Maharishi starts his discussion with the fundamental level of intelligence underlying all creation. He refers to it as being. It's an infinite, unbounded field of pure consciousness, pure intelligence, pure creativity. There are many characteristics that you can ascribe to this field. And if you're a Vedantist, there are many characteristics that you would take away, meaning all of them. But nonetheless, this field of intelligence is discussed in yoga philosophy, Sankhya, Vedanta, in Kashmir Shaivism, just about everywhere they talk about this unified field of intelligence. But what Maharishi explains is that even though this field is transcendental, it's beyond time and space, it's beyond subject-object relationships, it's a state of just pure knowing, pure knowledge, even though it has this capacity to be transcendental to everything in time and space, it does, or it is, awake to itself, or it becomes awake to itself. Pure existence becomes awake to its own nature. And when it does so, it has the same characteristics that we have in any ordinary experience. If I look at a flower, you can isolate three components of that experience. There's myself, the knower, or the observer of the flower. There's the flower, which is the object of observation. And there's the process of observing. And that process, in the case of the flower, may be a complex neurophysiological function that allows me to experience it. It allows the flower to imprint itself in my consciousness. It allows it to go into memory and all of that. So when consciousness knows itself, this field of unity, pure unity, it experiences that it is the knower of itself. Consciousness is the knower of itself. It is the object of its own knowing, and it's the process through which consciousness knows itself. It's still a field of unity. It's not breaking up into different parts. It's eternally a state of unity, eternally a state of Brahman or Atma, or the state of yoga, or however it's described throughout the Vedic literature. As the state of Shiva in Kashmir Shaivism, they all describe the same field, and it's a state of unity, pure unity. But in knowing itself, it also takes on these three characteristics. And what that leads to is a dynamic structure within the field of consciousness. We're thinking of an unbounded ocean of pure consciousness, and within that unbounded field, because there is the state of one, the state of Samhita, and also the state of diversity, the beginning of diversity, which is knower, known, and process of knowing, or Rishi, Devata, and Chandas, they begin to interact. The three begin to experience their own unified value, and the unified value begins to express itself as three. And it's like an infinite frequency oscillation that takes place, one becoming three, three becoming one at the same time, simultaneously. And that infinite frequency oscillation, as Maharishi used to refer to it as, creates within the structure of this silent ocean of consciousness a sound. It's a hum or a reverberation. And it's not a sound that you hear through your ears, but it is a sound that can be heard on the level of consciousness itself. If you take yourself deep within and your nervous system is very pure and very receptive to the full nature of this field of consciousness, you can hear that sound, you can see that sound, you can hear it humming. And that sound is made up of the interaction of Rishi, Devata, and Chandas, knower, known, and process of knowing, with the unified value. But these values of knower, known, and process of knowing also begin to interact with themselves. And when they interact with themselves, they create new values of knower, known, and process of knowing. And they continue to create more and more and more. And each of these interactions between Rishi, or the knower, interacting with the process of knowing and interacting with the object of knowing, and reverse, likewise, the object interacting with the knower and with the unified value of Samhita, they all create their own sounds. So we have this one value of, you could say, primordial sound, the reverberation within consciousness, but within it, the sounds of all of the different transformations are taking place. So within this sound, this primordial sound, which Maharishi refers to as Veda, within Veda, there are the sounds that become the sutras of Patanjali, the Vedanta sutras, Charak Samhita, all the different 40 different branches of Vedic literature that Maharishi has identified. Now these sounds are not just sounds, but they are structures of intelligence. And they're structures of intelligence that are the laws of nature. And these laws of nature, they administer the field of consciousness itself. And as they progress, as layer upon layer and upon layer upon layer progress and unfold, they become increasingly concrete and ultimately express themselves as the universe around us. They express themselves as the mountains, the trees, the valleys, the galaxies, the subatomic particles, and they're the laws that not only create these values, but administer them. The galaxies moving around in the heavens with perfect precision, the growth of plants, the growth of children, whatever. All of these take place on the basis of laws of nature. And these laws of nature, on their most fundamental level, are these impulses of consciousness that arose from the initial interaction between the knower, known, and process of knowing, and become increasingly concrete and begin to, you could say, divide themselves into the different branches of Vedic literature. In addition to creating the galaxies, in addition to creating the rivers and mountains, they also create the human physiology. And the human physiology is made up of Vedic sounds, just as the entire universe is made up of these Vedic sounds. The human physiology is made of Vedic sounds. And these sounds are grouped in terms of the different structures of intelligence that make up Yoga Sutras, Vedanta Sutras, Upanishads, Aranyakas, Brahmanas, all of these different groups of intelligence. They express themselves as the human physiology. So, for example, Rig Veda expresses itself as the entire human physiology. Yoga Sutras of Patanjali express themselves as the different 4 areas of the human brain. And we say of Patanjali because Patanjali didn't write them according to Maharishi. He saw them within his own consciousness. What a Vedic seer does is they didn't write poems, ancient poems. I remember reading years and years ago that Rig Veda was supposed to be a collection of ancient poetry, not without merit, which was kind of the damning with faint praise. But these sounds were seen by the great rishis, Bhrigu and Vasishta and Bhagambrani and so forth, and they saw them as waves of their own consciousness. Their consciousness was identified with the supreme level of Brahman, with Atma, with the state of yoga. That was the level of their consciousness. And in that level of consciousness, they saw their consciousness taking the shape of waves, and the waves taking the shape of sounds. And these are the Vedic literature, the sounds of Vedic literature. So when we know that, let's say, using the example of Yoga Sutras, which comprise the 4 lobes of the brain, they are created, they have the Vedic sound of yoga at their basis, but the 4 lobes are created from the sequence of sounds from the yoga aspect of Vedic sounds. The whole physiology is created by the sequence of sounds of Rig Veda. The motor systems throughout the physiology are created by the sequence of sounds of Atharva Veda. So when we have a health difficulty, some disruption in the physiology, what it means is that sequence has been disturbed in some way. The sequence of Hatha Yoga Anushasanam, in some way the sounds have become disturbed, and so that part of the brain is disturbed. So one of the aspects of Ayurvedic medicine, it's a time, it's becoming empirically verified in this age, but it's been there as long as Ayurveda is there, is the use of the Vedic sounds to restore the proper sequence of sounds in the physiology. So if you have a difficulty in the cardiovascular system, you can listen to the sounds that are associated with the cardiovascular system, or you can have yagyas performed, or you can read or have pundits recite those sounds, and that can restore the, you could say it's the vibration, the fundamental vibration underlying that particular aspect of the physiology. So what, and I should mention that the correlation between the Vedic literature, what correlates from the Vedic literature with the human physiology. Dr. Nader, who we heard this morning and who's president of MIU, under Maharishi's guidance, went through all the branches of the Vedic literature and all the structures and functions of the physiology and correlated the Vedic literature with the different branches of physiology. So, for example, I have to think of an example quickly, but Yoga Sutras has 192 sutras. Vedanta Sutras, I think there are 550 Vedanta Sutras. And what Maharishi and Dr. Nader did was they found those branches of the Vedic literature that corresponded with the aspects of the physiology in structure, how the Vedic literature is structured and how the physiology is structured, and in function. What is the purpose of Vedanta philosophy? What is the purpose of Charaka? What is the purpose of any area of Vedic literature? And then what branch of the Vedic literature corresponds most closely with that function? Each area has a holistic effect. If you listen to the Yoga Sutras, you're not just gaining an effect on the level of the 4 different hemispheres of the brain. It has a holistic effect, but its most concentrated effect is on the area of physiology that the Vedic literature is associated with. So that is Maharishi's. It's a brief overview. I skipped over a number of interesting parts. You can read the paper that was made for this conference, or you could read Dr. Nader's magnificent book called Vedic Literature. It's Vedic Literature and Human Physiology, and it outlines all the correlations between the different branches of Vedic literature and the different aspects of human physiology. But that's a general idea, and I'll leave it at that.